her that on Tuesday night. I hear you love your deck, or you had good process with the deck going on. She probably knows now. She's tuning in.
I'd like to say special hello to Kim for watching the pregame show and everyone else that's joining us.
I specifically said, do not bring up significant others during mic check, and Lud specifically does it directly when we go live.
Already started going off the rails, and we just started. So let's get back on the rails. Monty is back in town for the second time this season. I think it's like a month and a half since he was in. Well, no, it's not even. It's almost a month exactly to when the Bruins were here, and now he's here again. And in between that time, he lost his job and got hired again during a 5-day span. This is the DLS Dallas Stars pregame show. Luds is here. I'm here. John is here. Let's get the show started. This is the DLS Dallas Stars pregame show as we get you ready for tonight's action between the Dallas Stars and the St. Louis Blues. Live from our lounge studios, Craig Ludwig, our producer John Anderson.
Owen on time, by the way, Luds. Clap for him.
No plant to talk about.
There is a big focus group going on.
But he still had to work on his scooter.
Oh, that's a whole nother story. We'll save that for a segment on the show. The plant may have tested better than me. So if you see the plant for the postgame show, don't be alarmed. It's just that's what the viewers want. So maybe we bring the plant back in and sit next to Luds. The Stars will play the Blues tonight. And Luds, we have a lot of storylines, but I want to start with simple as Dallas needs a win tonight just to draw to an even 500 record in their last 10 games. They're 4-5 in their previous 9, and their goal differential in a per game is negative 0.22. That means that they're averaging scoring 3 goals a game, and they're averaging over that 9-game span giving up 3.22. Well, when you average giving up more than you score, you don't win as many hockey games as you lose.
So we go back to the start of the year where Jakeoettinger was a big reason why they were winning some hockey games, because they weren't that good at the other end of the rink and in front of them. So, yeah, they've got to get it together. You know, and I think this is a good team to. And again, they're not a team that's up in the standings, but they're only 4 points behind them. Dallas has got some runway there yet, but it's a team that they know well. And there's some familiarity with people in management, Monty, the whole 9 yards. But it always seems like it's a tight game for the most part. And even if it's not an old rivalry from this group of players, there's things that carry over. And I just think that this is a good team for these guys to play after coming off a loss that was obviously a very disappointing one, especially in considering the way that the Nashville club was playing.
So Dallas had 3 days off. They played the worst team in the league record-wise. And for the second straight game, they were not against Nashville. They were arguably the worst team, because if you remember the first game of the year, they won, where they kind of got some offense and power play stuff, and their goalie was good, but they got outplayed by Nashville. So maybe there's something to the Preds that seems to not work well for the Stars.
Well, they got goaltending. I mean that for sure. They were having a hard time putting the puck by them at the right times of the game. But, I think the thing is that I think these guys understand this, or at least most of them do. I know there's some new guys on this team too, but when you've had the success that you've had over the last couple seasons, and you come in with the billing that you did this season and being a favorite to, at least get to the semifinals and then the finals, all teams kind of use you as a stepping stone or a measuring stick or whatever you want to call it. So teams know that if you want to take a couple of shifts off against this team, they have the bullets that can get down the ice and hurt you. It hasn't worked out the same this year as it has in the past. I think they're still trying to get that chemistry going, and now obviously with Tyler out, there's a little more that has to fit together, some changes in the back end and all that other kind of stuff. So they're not the same team from last year, but they still have the capability of putting some points up there.
The Stars lineup, we'll show you the forwards here, expected tonight is the same as they have been for about 4 or 5 games now. You talked about consistency. The thing is that what we're not seeing is consistency of performance within the group, but the lines are staying even, partly because Tyler Seguin is injured and out for a long time, so they don't really have an option as nobody healthy scratch. They could call somebody up if they needed to, but right now, this is the group they're going with. Now, they shifted lines a little bit in the third period against the Preds to try to get something going, but Pete said don't really look much into that. The Blues did the same thing in their last game, and Monty said the exact same thing, which is, you lost to the Sharks at home. We're just trying to mess with it, but we're not necessarily going with that. Of those 4 lines as they stand right now, are there any that you're unhappy with, or is it just a matter of getting them to be clicking on all cylinders, getting 2 or 3 going on a night?
Well, I mean, I think that the Marchment, Duchesne, Stankoven has got the problem of, meshing together with Stank over there. I think that the Hintz, Johnson, Robertson has the problem of getting Robo up to speed, no pun intended, but need him to get going. I think the line that seems to the bottom 2 lines to me are pretty steady, which is you'd like it the other way around if you had a choice, but they're searching. I like that they're just keeping these things together, because now I don't think that there's anybody in the minors right now or a player that they're going to move up that they're going to stick in there that can all of a sudden spark one line. And I think they've got to start to get to the point where, guys, here's our groups. Here's our groups of 3. Let's get to know each other. And again, there's the bottom line and Benn's line. I think they're okay. But I think the top 2 lines, they've got to get that cohesiveness between all 3 of them and basically all 6 of them.
Was the most disappointing part of the game against Nashville the first period to you? The fact that you're a rested team and that they came out and looked like they were slow and getting outskated by a Predators team that had lost 8 straight games?
It's hard for me to say this, knowing that some of the guys that are in that room that are leaders and know all this is like, it was almost like they were feeling that they were just going to hand it to them.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna play the team that everybody in the league is talking about, that they expected to be fighting for, the division lead, but is sitting in the basement right now. And I think that they thought that they could come out and not play it like it was Vegas, like it was Edmonton, like it's one of those teams that's at the top that if you don't,
almost as if showing up would be enough.
Yeah, like you're not afraid. You're not afraid of them, and those other teams. We talk about Vegas. They're ready to play Vegas. And a lot of that has to do with playoff hockey, for sure. But even if it's from the East and you're playing New Jersey or you're playing the Rangers when they were good, or one of those kind of teams that we can't take a shift off here because they can hurt us with that shift. I don't think they came in with that attitude because of all the problems that Nashville's been having. And that's I don't want to call it a room thing, but it should be in everybody's head that we have to play this team like it is Vegas.
The Stankoven situation is not a problem because of the way he plays. He's a responsible 200-foot player. He's not making things worse when he's on the ice. But he's in a bit of a drought. And Luddy, he has not scored a goal in 11 games now. He has 2 assists during that span. Now, he's been on a couple different lines, but in the last 4 or 5, when Sagan's been out, he's been playing with Duchesne and Marchment. And are you at all surprised that he hasn't? Yeah, maybe he's just like figuring things out. And Duchesne told me the other day after practice, I think it was Wednesday, that he felt pretty good about where they were going and they were getting scoring chances. But you're bound to pick up some points when Marchment and Duchesne are playing as well as they are. What's going on with Stankoven in your mind?
I just wonder if he's trying to play more or give pucks more to them and try to find them more from
defer a little bit.
Yeah, he's not. It's almost like I have to get them the puck because the other guy that they were playing with, there was so much chemistry together. I want them to continue to get their points and their goals and do all those things, where he just needs to be who he is. It's the reason that they put him there right now. He's not Tyler. We know that. We've already talked about this to nauseum almost. But he just has to be who he is. I'd be curious, and I didn't look at this. I didn't even think about this. He just mentioned that. What his shot totals would be like per game since he started playing with these guys versus what he was before.
Well, I can look that up while you...
Well, can we just kind of lumber along here?
Well,
kill time?
You want to...
Yeah.
Can you vamp?
Well, no. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, like, is he deferring too much? Is he trying to, as he's coming up the ice, is he trying to look to make a pass to Matt or Marchment. More than likely, it'd be Matt because he's in the center of the ice. Is he trying to defer to him too much versus just getting to that blue line and getting a nose that goes to the net and pucks to the net and follow it up, and which is not the same way that Tyler Seguin would play. So is he trying to add a little of Tyler Seguin's game into what he's doing, playing with those two guys? And I'm sure these guys have had conversations with them. So have I rambled on long enough for you to find
I'm
it?
ready for you.
Okay, go ahead.
So I appreciate that. Thank you for vamping.
Yeah.
Last game may be an outlier because of how poorly the team played in general. But he did not have a shot, and he was -2 in the game.
And that's not him. We know that.
Right.
He usually gets pucked
So
up.
the 3 games before that, right? Seguin didn't go to Utah. So I don't remember. I think Stankoven played against the Utah Hockey Club with Duchesne and Marchment. Was that the first one?
I think, didn't he start there right away?
I think so.
Yeah.
So he had 1 shot on goal in that one. Then he had 2 against LA. He had 7 at Vegas. Then he had 2 at home against Calgary. So I look at that and I go, no, that doesn't necessarily tell me that he's deferring, but the fact that he had 0 shots on goal against Nashville, again, that could just be a lousy game against the Preds for everybody.
See, I think he has more games leading up to that's closer to 7 than he does the 1s and 2s. You know, I always feel that
Believe it or not, 7 was a season high.
Yeah, but I feel like he's on the sheet most nights for around 4 or 5 shots.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you go through it, there's a handful of 5 and 6s. The one that stands out to me is the 2 really lousy games the Stars have played lately. At Chicago and then home against Nashville, right? Those are 2 losses against the teams that are at the bottom of the division and the conference, and they're not happy about losing those games. Logan Stankoven has 0 shots on goal in both of those games. Now, that may not be on him. I'm not trying to blame Stankoven on the losses at all. But it goes to show that when the team's not playing well, it kind of affects everybody.
It does, yeah. And again, I say it, he's a driver in the sense that when he gets the puck in the neutral zone, he generally goes straight ahead. And if he can't skate the puck across the offensive blue line, he's going to chip it into a spot where he can get in, get a bump on somebody, turn the puck over, and then somebody usually comes in, picks it up, or he makes another play. I'm just curious if when he gets the puck, high in his zone and entering the neutral zone, is he looking to get that puck over to one of those 2 guys a little bit more than what he used to?
Well, I don't want everybody to think that we're just here to make you feel bad before the St. Louis game. So let's talk about something positive. And it's a 6'7" positive, and that's Lian Bichsel. And Bichsel had a dynamite debut. He scored his first goal, which was the only goal of the game for the Stars. He was physical. He had 4 or 5 hits in the game. He took a penalty early. I actually told him this morning that I thought it was very soft. And he said, yeah, I think so. But, whatever. It's all part of the game. The thing that keeps standing out to me, Luds, about his personality is he doesn't seem to be too bothered by how things are. He seems very go with the flow and at the same time, but he's not passive. What I mean is he's willing to go out and be who he is and try to impact and dictate games. Again, this is it'll be a second NHL game tonight, but he doesn't seem to be. He said he was nervous for his first game, as you would expect, but he didn't play nervous.
Well, I think he's a confident kid.
Yeah.
And I think he's confident because he obviously has the size. He's got the skating ability. I think he knows who he is as a player. And all you're really looking for, like we said, this is game 2, is he had a good game. There was a couple positional things that we pointed out, but nothing major, nothing that any other young player is going to do at the NHL level after playing a handful of minor league games. But he needs to, like tonight, he needs to put another brick on top of that brick. And you keep on building on who he is and don't get carried away. And I don't think he's the kind of guy that's getting carried away because he scored the first goal in the first NHL game.
I don't either.
He's not going to be running up the ice looking to score a goal. It seems like he picks his spots. He understands joining the rush and things like that. I think he's the player that knows who he is and what's going to get him here now that he's here, what's going to keep him here. And it doesn't mean that he's not going to get sent back down this year again. But again, if he continues to grow like this and he brings that edge, and it's not just that edge, it was about how he plays in front of his own net. Like, there's nobody standing around. Like, he looks for somebody to move. We haven't seen a lot of that with this club in the last couple of years. They kind of play off a shot. They allow him to come there. He sees somebody there and he takes it personally. It's like, no, you're not supposed to be here. Yeah, did he go overboard on one? But again, we're not going to. I don't think it was that aggressive of a cross check of whatever they gave him. But he knows what he's supposed to do in front of the net, which that would make your goaltenders very, very happy.
So, quick hypothetical, because we'll get into this more as we go along, and the trade deadline isn't until March. But we all had in the back of our minds that Bichsel could be in the last 2 seasons. You had Harley come up late in the season and earn a spot on the roster before the playoffs. You had Logan Stankoven do the same thing. And Bichsel could be this third one. But having him come in December, now I'm not saying he's going to stay, and Luddy said it already. He could very easily get sent back down. And frankly, if Matt Dumba gets healthy, that's probably the way it is, unless Bichsel plays so well they can't take him out of the lineup. But with all that being said, we've been saying that upgrading the defense is a priority for Jim Nill, especially with the LTIR cap space they can use with Tyler Seguin if they need and or want to. How does it change if Bichsel shows he's there and now you've got 4 lefties that you want in the lineup?
Well, yeah, if they really want to be set on playing lefty righty, which at times they don't even have that anyways. I just think that if you see enough out of this kid in the next 10 games, 15 games, whatever he gets an opportunity to play, maybe it kind of tweaks the way that you're looking at the deadline and the ad with that. If there is that LTI money and things like that, it may change your thinking of, you know what, there's no reason to give up this guy or that guy. Which is a good problem to have, for all of them, everybody around there. So, but as far as the 4 lefties and 2 righties or whatever it's going to be, I don't think you want to see him play his offside if you don't have to as a young player.
At least
as a young
right
player.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, he's going to stay where he is. And then you've got, again, we know that Miro can play on the offside.
Frankly, I think right now he is your number 1 right, even though he's a left shot.
And like I said, I mean, there's certain things that he can do from that left side that make a difference. But he's got offensively, when he's on the right side and the puck comes around the wall, he's so good at getting it off the wall. And he makes one move in one stride. He gets the puck, to his left-handed side. And all of a sudden, if you pull it off the wall, you're only a couple feet to the middle of the ice. This way, when he does it, he's close to the middle of the ice, which opens up shot lanes for him to get pucks through a little bit better. So I don't think it affects him for being that guy that plays on the right side. And then you got Harley and let's see, we got Essa, Harley.
Well,
and
go ahead and show
one.
the group tonight, John, if you would. And this is your visual aid. This is, and it could work both ways, Luds. If Bichsel stays, you could have Harley with Heiskanen. You really like the Essa Lindell and Miro Heiskanen pairing. Either way, it allows you to have one of those 2 lefties together, or 2 of those lefties together. Then the question is, we're really happy with Ilya Lyubushkin. If he is your 3rd pairing right defenseman and one of your top penalty killers, then the question is, and I think Nils Lundqvist has been a lot better. Is he the other guy you want? Because I think right now the Stars would be fine with Miro, Lyubushkin, maybe not 1-2, but 1-3. Do you go look for a number 2 right? Is that what you're happy with? Or do you go, you know what? We can find that right side guy to play with Miro, and all of a sudden, we'll worry about Bichsel down the road because he's young and he can go down.
See, I always look at these things, whether we're playing at home or we're playing on the road.
Yeah.
And then I'm also looking at the opponent. So, I think that you're going to try to get Miro against the Thomas line tonight, and so Harley can play up there. And you got it right there. You got Kyrou, Thomas, and Buchnevich, and that's their line. I mean, and so
that is their number 1 by a long shot.
And in my opinion, I think Miro can play on the left with Lyubushkin on that one. I don't think there's anybody. Lyubushkin has shown that he can play up there. Should he play a steady diet of 24, 25 a night?
That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because Miro should be playing.
But has he done anything yet that says that he can't do that?
I haven't seen much from him where I'd go, ooh, I didn't like that.
Yeah,
honestly,
that he can't survive there.
Honestly, no.
But again, you can. If you put him up there like that, then you put Harley. The only thing I worry about is when I love Essa and Miro together because I think it brings out. And again, I know it has nothing to do with him being on certain sides, but when Essa is up there and Miro's there, he knows that he can jump ahead a little bit more. He can lend to the offense going through the offensive zone because he trusts probably Essa a little bit more. And Thomas is more of an offensive guy anyways. So I don't know. I think sometimes it's a good problem to have that you have guys that can play, or a guy like Miro that can play anywhere you want. But I think Lyubushkin, I would like to see Lyubushkin, honestly, tonight. I would like to see him play with Miro up there and see how he does against that top line.
Well, let's talk about the goaltender really quickly, and then we'll start getting into the Blues a little bit more. Is if you look at the Stars group again, you'll notice that Casey DeSmith is not listed below Jake Oettinger tonight. It's Magnus Hellberg. Magnus Hellberg played last night in a 5-4 overtime loss in Cedar Park, Texas Stars against the Chicago Wolves. He was not at the morning skate today. Obviously, it was an optional skate. There's no reason to hustle him in to be at an optional morning skate. So their E-Bug, Chris Dudo, was on the ice this morning. He was there for practice yesterday. That was fine. Gave them another goalie to shoot at. But the big thing is Casey DeSmith is out with an illness. And Pete called it the flu. I don't know if it's actually influenza or just that generic. He has a bug, an illness, some sort of virus. So DeSmith didn't practice yesterday. He will not back up Jake Oettinger tonight. They're fortunate that they don't really have the schedule where they need to rely on their backup. Although I think Hellberg in a pinch could be fine for this team. But they'll go with Oettinger until DeSmith gets better. The bigger question, Luds, is as you hear that DeSmith is not feeling great, and I saw Pete DeBoer's press conference before and after the game against Nashville, he didn't sound 100% healthy. Then you start wondering if this isn't something that might be going through the team.
Well, when it travels, it travels. You know, it does. But no players are healthy all season long anyways, and nobody really complains about having the flu or whatever it is. They go and play, and they generally – sometimes you raise your game when you're not feeling good or you got an injury because you know you have to give a little bit more. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that. And if it's there, and if they have it and they've got 3 or 4 guys, guess what? St. Louis is going to have it in a couple days from now.
The Blues have lots of storylines. Let's start with the obvious. Well, actually, the obvious might be the trade, but let's talk about Jim Montgomery, and then we'll get to the trade. Jim Montgomery has already coached against the Dallas Stars twice, in Boston on October 24th, and then in Dallas on November 14th. Today's December 14th, so literally 1 month later, he's back in town with a different team, and it's actually a couple of weeks after he took over. They fired Drew Bannister on November 24th, and in comes Jim Montgomery. Well, why is that interesting? Because December 14th, 2023 was when Bannister was hired 2 days after they fired Craig Berube. So all these weird numbers and coming together, and we talked about it when they made the deal, that Bannister was probably only fired because Monty was available. It was not because they were all that upset. Why do I say that? Well, in 76 games as the head coach of the St. Louis Blues, Drew Bannister had a .553 point percentage. He was 39, 31, and 6, which during that span was the 15th best record, right down the middle of a 32-team league. Not terrible, but also not really taking that step forward. And I think his record was a little better to close last year and a little worse to start this year.
Yeah, but again, it's the parts that you have. You know, I don't think it's the coaching from Monty. Monty has systems and philosophies to try to shut down opponents, and he's kind of a throwback to some of the old school coaches that we've had. And and Monty didn't have to hang around long when he got fired in Boston because Army's got familiarity with him. I mean, he was in the organization prior, so he obviously liked what Monty was doing. And I would think the reason that he liked what Monty was doing is because Army was around this organization for a long time. And there are some characteristics as far as the way you play the game and where you focus, things on, and you take care of your own end. You try to keep the goals against down where it is, instead of playing maybe a high octane game. And Monty kind of fits into that mold. He's got a system that really tries to help out the goaltenders at the other end of the rink as far as quality scoring chance and the number of chances. So I think that's probably what Doug Armstrong is kind of looking for. And Army's in a situation there in St. Louis, I think, where nobody expected him to be a playoff team, but they're hanging around a spot right now, and he's kind of treading water, so to speak, for a couple more players and a couple more moves to be made. Whether he decides to make them this year or not, there's 2 or 3 younger guys there I think he's expecting to jump into this team in 2-3 years from now.
It's interesting. He talked about the trade today. The trade today was Cam Fowler being acquired from the Anaheim Ducks with 38.46% salary retention. Why so specific? Well, basically $4.00001 million, which was essentially the exact same as Nick Leddy's money. But they also sent a 2024 fourth-round pick to St. Louis. The Ducks got the 2027 second-round pick and a defensive prospect. His name is Jeremy Biakabatuka. Easy for me to say. And Armstrong today spoke with the media in Dallas this morning at the morning skate. He talked about overusing their top 4 defensemen. He said our top 4 have been averaging 20, 25 minutes, too much. He said, particularly since one of them is about to turn 40, and I don't think that's sustainable. And he's talking about Ryan Suter, the former Dallas Stars defenseman. Luds, when you have a top 4 you're using a lot more than the final pairing, that does get a little top heavy, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Army knows better. I mean, you're playing every other night, every 3 nights, and it's early. And you don't want to wear the guys down, but what you're worried about is injuries creep up then. You get tired, and you get physically tired, and sometimes you get hurt more because of that. So I think he's going to try what he's trying to find. He's trying to find some balance. And like you said, I don't think anybody's going to say that Ryan Suter is the ideal top 4 defenseman anymore at this stage in his career.
He's 39, about to turn 40.
But trust me, Ryan Suter wants to play 26 minutes a night. If he could, if somebody would let him, he would. One thing he can do is he can skate, and he's got a set of lungs on him that allows him to do that. Does he always play the right position? We'll let you judge on that because you had an opportunity to watch him play.
Hey, John, throw the Blues lines up again, if you would, please. Because
Offense?
The Blues.
Offense?
Offense. The forward line, excuse me. Yes, the Blues lines, the forwards. Notice who's not in the lineup tonight, Luds. Brendan Saad. He is a healthy scratch tonight. He is in the middle of a 13-game goal drought. Alexander Texier will replace him. And so Saad has had some trouble scoring. In fact, this season, and it's not really of positive stat for him, he has 4 goals in 27 games. He is a goal scorer, right? He's not usually a setup guy. He is a go-to-the-net style player. He has only scored in 2 of his 27 games this year. He has multi-goal games in both, and he has been over in the other 25.
Is that a slump, or is that...
That's kind of a trend.
He's been in the league for what, 14 years?
Long time.
Yeah,
and Monty
14,
said
15
today,
years?
when they asked him, what does he have to do better? His answer was kind of what you said about Jason Robertson. He's got to get to the areas where goals are scored more.
It's funny when you have players that have been in the league for a little while, and obviously Saad's been in, long time before that, or since Robo, we're talking. But when you're having success scoring goals in your career and you're scoring 20 to 30 goals every year, you score them in certain ways, and everybody's different. But, Saad was that kind of guy, and we talked about Robo, and, you've got to ultimately get to the better areas. You got to pay the price a little bit more to do that. And so, and again, they don't have the greatest of speed, but they can find ways to get to the front of the net.
Now, healthy scratching Brendan Saad tonight is not the same as healthy scratching or benching David Pastrnak, or talking about Brad Marchand having to play better.
Right.
This is not the same level of scrutiny, right? St. Louis is a proud organization, but
it's an easier move for Monty than it is.
That's what
Pasta
I mean.
or somebody
but
like
it's
that.
a different guy. And here's the thing: so far in 8 games under Jim Montgomery, the Blues are 5-2-1. That's .688 point percentage, 8th best in the NHL over that span. Now, some of that could be new coach bump, or some of it could be that this group needs to have somebody like Jim Montgomery.
Yeah, well, I think he's a detail guy, and it's it's easier to make a statement when you're sitting a veteran player out than sitting a kid that's in his first or second year. You sit a guy like Saad out of the lineup, it seems to make a bigger noise in the locker room. So it gets your attention just saying that, hey, nobody's off limits here. But Monty's the kind of guy that has a system that he likes to play, and you're going to play within his system or you won't play. He believes in what he does, and they create a lot of offense off of their forecheck. And They'll forecheck in a way that they force pucks go to guys that are standing still if they can do that, and that's how they create turnovers, and then they'll go the other way. Because, again, they have to do those kind of things because they don't have the luxury of having 5 or 6 guys like Dallas typically would last year, where they had guys that could score a lot.
Last thing I want to bring up was about the schedule for the Blues, because the Stars were talking, Pete DeBoer, about them being on fumes going into that Calgary game last Sunday in a long stretch. Well, Monty took over in the middle of a 3-game New York trip where they played the Islanders. That's when Bannister was fired. Then they hired Monty. They beat the Rangers, the Devils, and then they came home and lost to the Flyers in overtime. But then so far in the month of December, it's out west, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver, all on the road. They had to fly back from Vancouver the next day. It's a long travel day. Then they lost at home to the Sharks. That's a trap game if you want the definition of one. And now they're playing the Stars. But guess what? It's a trap. They have to play at home tomorrow. Now, it's not a long flight to St. Louis from Dallas, but they have to play the Rangers at 5 in the afternoon tomorrow at home. They play the Devils on Tuesday at home, and then they go to Florida for a back-to-back at Tampa and at the Panthers before finishing an Eastern trip in Detroit. They do, and then they have the Christmas break. They're going to be on real fumes.
Yeah, and I think, after tonight's game, they should look forward to getting 2 points from the Rangers before the other couple teams that they're going to have to play. So, hey, the schedule's a schedule. At some point, every team has to go through it. So that's why you don't ever hear them complain about it.
All right, so that's a good brief look at the Stars and the Blues. They face each other for the first of 3 times this year. It should be 4 because you should play all your division opponents the same. But that's another conversation. For Craig Ludwig and for our producer, John Anderson, I'm Owen Newkirk. Hope you enjoyed the pregame. We will be here right afterwards for a postgame wrap-up of Stars and Blues. Enjoy the game.
I believe that they are going to crush these guys tonight.
We all silly like the mayor.